Your TSH is normal, but your hair is falling out and you're crashing every day by 2 p.m. But your doctor says there's nothing wrong with your thyroid. Spoiler, they probably aren't even checking the right labs. Little disclaimer here, yes, I am a physician assistant, but this video is for educational purposes only, should not be taken as medical advice. Please always consult with your healthcare provider before making any changes to your health, supplements, or medications. So, you've gone to your doctor with the classic stuff. Maybe you're cold all the time, you have hair thinning, you can't lose weight no matter what you do, brain fog, constipation, low libido, irregular menstrual periods. They probably ran one lab, which is TSH, maybe a T4 if you're lucky. The number came back within the reference range, and then they told you everything was normal. Here is the issue. TSH is a pituitary signal, meaning it's coming from your brain, okay? It tells you what your brain is asking your thyroid to do. It says almost nothing about what your thyroid hormones are actually producing or whether the tissues in your body can use it, okay? So you can have a normal TSH, but you could have a low free T3, which is the actual active thyroid hormone in your body. And you're still going to feel completely awful all while your chart or your lab say everything is normal, okay? So when a client comes to me with thyroid problems, this is the panel I want to see, bare minimum. TSH, free T4, free T3, reverse T3, thyroid antibodies, and sometimes even total T3 and total T4 if I'm tracking, conversion patterns or things more in depth. So this is 5 to 7 markers. Meanwhile, most people with these complaints, when they go to their PCP, they get one lab checked, okay? And conventional medicine, they treat TSH like the screening test. If that's normal, they basically stop there. Reference ranges and optimal ranges are very different things. So here's what I want to see clinically. A TSH closer to 1. The reference range for this will go up to usually 4 or even 4.5 on some labs. And technically a TSH of 4 is normal, but you're going to feel absolutely miserable. I want to see a free T4 between 1 and 2. This is the storage form of your thyroid hormone. Free T3, ideally between 3.5 and 4.3, so high end of the range. This is the active form of your thyroid hormone. This is the one that your cells are going to actually use to regulate your metabolism, regulate your body temperature, your hair growth, clear out inflammation. At a minimum, I at least want to see free T3 over 3.0. Reverse T3, I want to see that under 15. I'll explain this in a second. Thyroid antibodies, I definitely want to see it under the lab cutoff, but ideally in low single digits. The antibodies are going to tell you whether your immune system is attacking your thyroid. So think about things like Hashimoto disease, which this is the most common reason for hypothyroidism in the United States. So the conversion problem, let's talk about this for a second. Your thyroid mostly secretes T4. T4 is essentially the storage hormone. It has to be converted over to T3 in your body to be active in order for, your liver, your gut, other tissues to use it. If that conversion is broken, your T4 could look fine on paper, but your T3 could be suboptimal or even low, and you're going to feel like crap. So here is the interesting part. If your body is not converting T4 to T3, which is again what we want, this is the active form of the thyroid hormone, it's going to convert it instead to reverse T3. This is bad. Reverse T3, you can basically think of it as like a metabolic break, okay? So not only is it bad because it's converting to the wrong thing, it's also going to prevent T3, active T3, from working the way that it should. Your body is going to make reverse T3 on purpose if it senses things like stress, illness, undernourishment, chronic dieting. It's basically a survival adaptation. So if your reverse T3 is high and your T3 is low, your body is running in conservation mode and your metabolism is going to be downshifted. This is intentional. That is why telling someone with a thyroid issue like this just to eat less and move more makes you feel worse, not better. So, the things that I see that tank thyroid function in my clients. Number one is chronic undereating. So, your body interprets a long calorie deficit as famine and it basically pulls back on T3 in order to survive. Overtraining. This is also the same signal. Basically, it's too much output, too little input, and your body is going to protect you by slowing down your metabolism. Chronically high cortisol. So, stress, poor sleep, late night work, doom scrolling, underlying gut infection. Cortisol blocks T4 to T3 conversion. So, you could be doing everything right, but if your stress is through the roof, your thyroid production is still going to be tanked. Okay, gut dysfunction. So your liver is going to do a lot of thyroid conversion from the T4 to the T3, but your gut largely decides whether conversion happens properly. Okay, so your microbiome regulates the deiodinase enzyme, which does a lot of the conversion. So gut inflammation is going to drive reverse T3 up. So think about SIBO, leaky gut, parasites, H. pylori, candida, low stomach acid, any of these are going to wreck the whole system of conversion. Nutrient deficiency. What does your thyroid need to function? You need things like zinc, selenium, iodine, iron, tyrosine, B vitamins. All of these are necessary in order for that conversion to happen. If you're chronically dieting, you're probably going to be low in at least two of these things. Nervous system dysregulation. If you live in fight or flight, your body is just flat out not going to make thyroid hormone optimally. Healing of the thyroid does happen more so in parasympathetic state. Okay, little personal story here. I'll be transparent with my own thyroid issues. I have low thyroid function. I have for years. Part of it, I do believe, is genetic because pretty much every woman in my family is on thyroid medication. But I'm a very large proponent of saying that genes load the gun, lifestyle pulls the trigger. So, my teens and 20s, that was the trigger for me. I was a chronic dieter. I didn't eat enough. I was training every single day, always, I didn't miss a day. My sleep was horrible. My stress was ridiculous. And I was convinced I was being healthy. If I wasn't staying up all night drinking and out with my friends, then I was up all night studying for PA school or whatever it was. But of course, I made sure I never missed the gym. I had severe GERD or acid reflux in my 20s. I ended up on PPIs for that, which didn't help anything. In fact, it made things worse. That set me up for basically an H. pylori overgrowth, which took me many, many years to identify and properly treat. So, pretty much my gut was wrecked for the better half of a decade. By the time I figured out what was actually happening, I realized my thyroid was already crap. So I'm still managing it now with labs, with food, with the right supplements, with an appropriate thyroid medication, and with all the lifestyle work that I honestly should have done back then. But this is why I am so direct with my clients about the long game. Okay. The thyroid is forgiving, but it does remember. So if you're doing the things that I did, please listen to this part. I see this every single day with physique competitors that come to me. So, bikini girls that are coming off a prep, they have no period, their hair is shedding every day, they are freezing, even if it's 75 degrees outside, and their labs say they're normal. But of course, they say they're normal because TSH lags behind. By the time TSH climbs into the abnormal range, the damage has already been done on the back end of the thyroid issues. So, when I run a full panel on a competitor, especially, free T3 is almost always low or at least suboptimal. Reverse T3, usually always high. The conversion is shot. So, they're often dealing with low stomach acid from years of basically just like chewing gum and coffee diet, and that compounds on the gut issue. So, what is going to work is reverse dieting back to maintenance, gut work, sleep, less training volume, and replenishing the nutrients that have been low for them for years. More dieting, that is going to dig this problem deeper. To be honest, this is probably the hardest mental shift for that population. It was very hard for me to make the mental shift when I decided to actually work on my health and not just continue burying myself. But it's the only thing that's going to work. So, some found out foundational nutrients that I lean on for thyroid clients. This is for educational purposes only. Please do not take this as a personalized protocol. So, zinc 30 to 50 milligrams daily. Zinc is required for T4 to T3 conversion and for TSH signaling. Selenium, I usually do about 200 micrograms daily. This is the single most important mineral for the conversion enzyme deiodinase and for lowering thyroid antibodies in Hashimoto. Fun fact, you can get selenium from Brazil nuts, so you don't actually want to eat too many Brazil nuts in a day because you can go way over your daily amount of selenium. Usually anywhere between like 2 to 3 Brazil nuts a day is fine. Iodine. Okay, thyroid hormone is literally built from iodine. So most women are mildly deficient. This is an important caveat though. If you have Hashimoto, you do not want to megadose iodine. That can make things worse. So you do want to cap it around 100 to 150 micrograms daily, which is typically the amount that you would find in like a prenatal or a solid multivitamin. Higher doses can flare antibodies and it can make autoimmunity worse. Magnesium glycinate is the next one. So 200 to 400 milligrams before bed. This is going to support your sleep, lower cortisol. It helps your nervous system get out of the sympathetic state. And it's indirectly very massive for thyroid. Another big one I like to use is ashwagandha, 1,000 milligrams daily. This is a very, very helpful adaptogen that I use for a lot of thyroid clients pretty much across the board. It helps modulate TSH, it improves T4 to T3 conversion, it lowers cortisol, and it's helpful for actually both hyper and hypothyroid. We're mostly talking about hypothyroid in this episode, but it can be helpful for both directions. If you have Hashimoto specifically, gut work, probiotics, non negotiable. The autoimmunity is gut driven in most cases. So if you have a targeted probiotic alongside a clean diet, so for many of these people, I'm cutting out gluten, sometimes dairy, depending on the person, but usually gluten can be a very big trigger for autoimmune thyroid issues. This in itself can drop thyroid antibodies pretty significantly over a period of a few months. I have seen this across the board with a lot of Hashimoto clients. Okay, so if your free T3 is low and your symptoms are severe, sometimes you might need thyroid replacement. So, conventional medicine is usually always going to start with T4 medication only. This is otherwise known as Synthroid or levothyroxine. For a lot of women, though, T4 alone isn't going to work because that is going to require your body to still convert it from T4 to T3. If you're having issues with conversion, just taking T4 medication like levothyroxine doesn't always cut it, okay? So what I see work best clinically, and this is what I often do for a lot of my patients, is a low dose combination of both T4 and T3. So an example might be 50 micrograms of T4 with 12.5 micrograms of T3. Typically, you want them in about a 4-to-1 ratio. Or you could take a product something like, or a medication, something like NP thyroid or Armour thyroid. This already has T4 and T3 combined in one pill. So the piece gives the body the active thyroid hormone directly. And while we're doing this, we're also working on the conversion problem upstream. So find a functional medicine or an integrative provider for this conversation. Most PCPs are honestly going to give you levothyroxine, make sure your TSH looks within the normal range and call it done. And that is it. I literally just had this conversation with a former client before where she's on levothyroxine. The doctor didn't even want to check her T3 or T4 because they said it doesn't matter. She's on the medication. Nothing else needs to be checked. Different goal, very different outcome. Okay, so one more thing on medications because I have a lot of people that will ask me this. How can you or can I ever come off of thyroid medications? You can come off of thyroid medication if and when the underlying issues are actually fixed. Okay, so sometimes people can fix the underlying issues, sometimes they can't, meaning that sometimes you will need to remain on thyroid medication. Your body will start producing thyroid hormone again. If you're at calorie maintenance, your gut is in a good shape, your sleep and your stress are all dialed in, your thyroid will typically come back online even if you stop the medication. The medication tapers off as your own production tapers back on. But again, this is only for those people that are fixing the underlying thyroid issue that was causing the low thyroid function in the first place. So, say for example, you are chronically dieting, maybe you're a competitor and you go out of competing, you increase your calories, you bring your stress down, you train a little bit less, your thyroid function can come back on. But again, many people will need to stay on thyroid medication for life if they're not able to fix the underlying root causes. Obviously, please do this under the supervision of someone who actually knows what they're doing. So, if you're sitting here with classic thyroid symptoms and normal labs, please don't let your PCP just stop at TSH. Push for the full panel, free T4, free T3, reverse T3, thyroid antibodies. And if they won't run it, get it done privately. You can always order your labs privately and pay out of pocket for them. If you want a clinician who will read these labs in the way that I would and build a plan that actually addresses the gut, the nutrients, the nervous system, and pieces the meds with that, the link to apply for a free initial call with my team will be down in the description. If this video helped you, save it and share it with a friend. Thanks so much, guys. I'll see you in the next one.